The television is on in the next room, volume low, and you're on your phone with the sound off. And every few minutes the crowd noise swells through the wall and you glance up. Not because you're pulled in, just out of habit, the way your eyes flick toward any sudden change in a room. Your eyes land on the screen for less than a second, long enough to register color and motion and nothing else. Then they're back on your phone before the play has even finished, and somewhere underneath that quick, automatic glance away is a fact you've never said out loud to anyone. You didn't feel the pull, not even a flicker of it. The roar swelled and receded, and something in you stayed exactly where it was, flat and unmoved, while a wall away an entire room of strangers just felt something together that never once touched you. What unsettles you isn't the indifference. You've made peace with the indifference years ago. What unsettles you is the relief underneath it, the small, quiet exhale that comes with not having to perform interest in something you don't feel. And how much easier the whole evening becomes the second you stop pretending to care where the ball went. It's not only the television in the next room, it's the scroll through a group chat that goes fully dead every October and comes roaring back every June, full of inside jokes about a season you weren't inside of. And you read the messages the way you'd read a language you technically understand but were never fluent in. Able to follow the words, unable to feel why they matter. It's the radio commentary bleeding through a car window at a red light. Someone's voice rising into something close to disbelief over a play you'll never see. And your hands stay loose on the wheel the entire time, nothing in your chest lifting to meet it. It's the years, plural, of trying to force the caring into existence, sitting through entire seasons on purpose, memorizing standings, waiting for the moment it would finally click the way it seemed to click for everyone else. And it never quite took. The way a plant won't grow just because you've decided it should. Not because you're incapable of caring hard about things. You care about plenty of things, sometimes embarrassingly hard. Just not this. And the not caring, sitting next to everyone else's caring, year after year starts to feel less like a preference and more like something wrong with the wiring. Here's the thing nobody explains about that kind of collective joy. It was never really about the game. When a room erupts, whether it's a stadium or a living room down the hall, something happens that has almost nothing to do with the score. Nervous systems sync, heart rates rise together, breath quickens on the same beat. For a few seconds, a room full of near strangers becomes one organism feeling one emotion at the same moment, and that feeling. Collective arousal is one of the oldest forms of belonging there is. Long before language, before tribes had names, the groups that could sync fastest survived longest, because a synced group moves as one animal instead of many separate ones scattered and exposed. The roar coming through the wall isn't really about the score. It's an ancient signal underneath the modern noise, saying, we are the same organism right now, and most nervous systems answer that signal automatically without ever consciously deciding to. Yours doesn't answer it the same way, and that was never a flaw sitting inside you like a part that came broken from the factory. That's information nobody ever taught you how to read it, but it's information all the same. It's worth being precise about what's actually happening in that non-response, because it isn't nothing. It's a process running quietly underneath the surface. In the half-second, the crowd noise swells and you don't rise to meet it. Some part of you is running a quick, automatic check. Is this safe to join? Is this worth the surrender? Is there any reason to let this particular wave carry you anywhere? Most nervous systems skip that checkpoint entirely and just go. Yours was built with one installed, somewhere back before you can fully remember, and the checkpoint never got the memo that it isn't required here. If you grew up somewhere the mood in a house could shift without warning, where you learned, without anyone teaching it to you directly. To read the temperature of a room before you said a single word, to know from the sound of a door exactly what kind of evening you were walking into. Your nervous system learned something early that most people never had to learn at all. It learned that group energy isn't automatically safe just because it's loud, and everyone around it seems happy inside it. It learned to check first and feel second, if feeling was even allowed to happen at all. Sports fandom asks for the opposite of that training. It asks for feeling first, loudly, before there's been any time to check whether it's safe to. It asks for full surrender to something entirely outside your control, with your face required to do something visible the second it lands. For most people, that surrender is the whole appeal. The letting go is the point of it. For a nervous system that spent years staying one careful step ahead of unpredictable outcomes, that same surrender was never a fun risk. It's the precise shape of the thing it spent years training itself never to do again, Nobody ever hands you the memo that says the reason a crowd's roar slides right off you is the same reason unpredictable moods used to make your whole body go quiet and watchful. You just notice one ordinary evening that a wall away, an entire room got to have something together that never once reached you. You don't know why yet. You just know some part of you stayed braced, the way it's always stayed braced in rooms that felt one shade too loud, too fast, too unpredictable to fully enter. It would be easy to stop right there. Easy and wrong. Because the deeper truth isn't that you're guarded or damaged or missing some piece everyone else was quietly issued at birth. The deeper truth is stranger than that. And more interesting. Most people who don't feel the pull of sports have spent years being asked to explain the absence. Almost nobody has ever asked them to explain the sensitivity sitting underneath it instead, because sensitivity is what's actually there. You're not numb to collective joy. You're the opposite of numb. You feel it too much, too fast before there's been any say in whether you want to feel it. And a system trained for years to monitor a room instead of merge with it reads that incoming flood as too much information all at once and pulls back automatically, the same way a hand pulls off a hot stove before the brain has finished deciding it's hot. What looks like indifference from the outside is frequently a nervous system doing exactly the job it was built to do, keeping you from getting swept somewhere you never actually chose to go. This is the part almost nobody says out loud, so let it just sit here for a second. The flatness was never really about sports. There's a particular kind of loneliness folded into this that doesn't announce itself as loneliness. You're not isolated. You have a life full of ordinary rooms you move through, homes, cars, group chats, evenings with the television on somewhere nearby. But there's a version of belonging happening constantly, close enough to reach that you never quite get pulled into. Not because anything is shutting you out on purpose, but because that particular door only opens if you can surrender the way it requires, and something in you keeps one hand on the frame just in case. You've made a kind of peace with it, mostly. Some evenings you genuinely don't need it. Other evenings the roar swells through the wall at exactly the wrong moment, and something in your chest goes quiet in a way that isn't quite envy and isn't quite grief, but sits somewhere uncomfortably close to both. And you don't have a name for it because nobody ever gave you one. I don't think that feeling fully resolves, if I'm being honest. I think you just get better, with enough years, at not needing it to. Here's the piece almost nobody frames correctly, and it's worth sitting with the longest. Belonging tends to get imagined in only one shape, the loud kind, the synchronized kind, the kind where a room full of near strangers feels one emotion at the same second and feels closer for it. So if that particular shape never quite lands for you, the quiet, and for years the assumption was that the wrong room had been assigned, when really it was just a different one. It's worth saying plainly that this isn't a consolation prize dressed up to sound noble. It isn't the thing you tell yourself so the stadium stops mattering. It's a separate skill, built the slow way, the way anything durable gets built, through hundreds of small moments of actually paying attention instead of a handful of loud ones spent feeling the same thing everyone else in the room felt at the same second. The crowd's version of closeness peaks fast and fades by morning. This other version tends to compound instead. I don't think this fully explains everything, and I'd rather say that plainly than tie it into something neater than it actually is. Some of it might just be that the game itself never interested you. Full stop, without any deeper architecture underneath it. Sometimes a thing simply isn't for you, and that's allowed to be the whole answer. No backstory required. I'm not going to pretend every quiet evening spent unmoved by a roar down the hall is secretly a trauma response wearing a jersey. That would be its own kind of dishonesty. The tidy kind. The kind that turns a life into a case study instead of a life. But for the ones who've spent years feeling like the flat spot in an otherwise electric room, it usually isn't indifference. It's a nervous system that learned early and thoroughly how to protect itself from being swept into something it never chose in advance. And that protection, once genuinely useful, doesn't always know the danger has passed. It just keeps running the same old program in rooms that are actually safe now because nobody ever told it the emergency was over. If there's a reframe worth taking from any of this, it's a small one, not a dramatic one. The flatness was never the absence of something. It was the presence of something, a watchfulness, once necessary, that decided a long time ago it was safer to stay steady than to disappear completely into a wave of borrowed feeling. That watchfulness cost a certain kind of easy, effortless belonging. the kind that comes free just for being in the room when the roar happens. It also built a kind of attention most people inside that roaring room never had to develop because the room was always safe enough for them to lose themselves in it without a second thought. The memo everyone else got was never missed. A different one was being read the whole time in a quieter language nobody ever taught out loud. Some days there still isn't a full answer for what to do with that. What's changed is that it stopped feeling like something wrong and started feeling like something closer to a fingerprint. Not a flaw waiting to be corrected, just a shape that happens to be true. If any part of this sounded familiar, the glance that lands for less than a second, the relief hiding underneath the indifference, the door that's technically open but never quite pulls you all the way through, it would genuinely mean something to hear about it. Drop a comment about what it is you found yourself standing just outside of, even on the days nothing on your face would have given it away. And if this named something that's never quite been said out loud before, it would mean a lot to have you stick around for more. Like the video, send it to someone who might need to hear it too, and subscribe if you want more of these. The wall between rooms is a strange place to feel understood, but here we are.